Hello, everybody. Wow, that worked. Thanks, everyone, for coming. My name's Dave. I'm from Real Art Press, and we've published this book with Ross and Metallica. And I'd like to thank you all for coming, and Chris Reisner for putting this all together. And I'd like to give a big warm welcome to Steffan Chirazi and Ross Halfin.
Let's see, I should be, oh, blimey, technology at work, I am on. Hello, good evening, and welcome to this most special of occasions, the Ross Halfin Q&A with me, your host for the evening, Steffan Chirazi. I'm the editor of Metallica's So What magazine. I think Dave's already thanked a few people, but I am going to thank them one more time. We need to thank Chris Reisner for putting this event on. Thanks, Chris. The Elks Lodge and Kevin Hunsanger from the Elks Lodge for hosting us all, and Michael Zagaris for suggesting this fine venue, and Real Art Press and Mr. Dave Brolin for helping make the book, which has brought us all here today, right, Ross?
Correct.
Yeah, correct, indeed. And aside from some in-depth discussion about this wonderful book, Metallica, the Black Album in black and white, we're also going to discuss Ross's career, your career,
my career,
as one of the top photographers in rock history. There is going to be an opportunity, as the event suggested, for you to get up and ask some questions. I'll give you a 10-minute warning, and you'll be able to go and line up by that there microphone, yeah, and put your questions forward. We'll play it by ear a little bit. We'll have a little bit of fun here, and get you up to ask questions as and when, yeah. So, that being said, I would like you to please, one more time, give a loud and rather deafening welcome to Mr. Ross Halfin. So I'm sorry to make you sit here and listen to this, because I'm going to do something that's semi-embarrassing when you do this to people who are sitting in front of you. But I want to give you a potted history of Ross's career. I think it's important you know where Ross came from, yeah? He was born in London, England. I don't mean where he came from in terms of where he was born, but he was born in England. But what's interesting is, Ross originally wanted to be an artist, correct? And actually attended Wimbledon School of Art.
I did.
In the 70s, where you studied painting. This was also an era when you could freely bring cameras to shows without needing a pass to step 5 feet forward, and 2 feet back. I mean, you could really go and enjoy yourself with a camera. And Ross started doing exactly that, and you bought cameras to gigs for the artists that you loved, right? So
Sure.
Some of those early people that you were, bringing cameras to shoot, who would they have been?
Well, I actually became a photographer because I was a big Who fan. And I saw The Who about 50 times with Keith Moon. Like you'd seen Metallica, I would go and see The Who. And I would always look at pictures and think, I can do better than that, which I probably can't, but that's youth. And then in London, AC/DC came over, and they were completely unknown because they'd failed in Australia. And they would play the Marquee Club, which was a club in London, on a Monday and a Wednesday. And I would go and shoot them because you could just go down there. And I got to know Malcolm Young quite well. And I sort of became the guy that shot AC/DC. Just I was at college, and I would just go there because I was like, 18, 17, 16, that age.
Yeah.
And I would go and shoot the bands when it was more empty, because there was no barricade, there was no light show. And I used to go and shoot AC/DC, and then the whole punk thing happened in England, in 76.
So, we should point this out. I think you have to understand that, concert security, it sort of really wasn't invented.
Didn't exist.
No,
concert security, as you know it now, did not exist. There was a company called Showsec were the first, and they were really brought in because David Cassidy was huge in 72, and a girl was killed at one of his shows in London, crushed to death. So they had to bring in a form of security to deal with the teenage, hysteria. And that was a company called Showsec, who actually would only do the bigger shows, and they were basically thugs who would beat you up if you didn't move. No, really, I mean, you know.
Well, they literally recruited them
They
from the
recruited
football
like
ground. Yeah.
people who would work outside clubs, you know, or hooligans. And that was the first form of security, wasn't it, in England?
Yeah.
Shows.
And so, you know, you've got to understand Ross is getting the access to the likes of the Clash, the Jam, the Pistols, and as he's mentioned, AC/DC, Aerosmith, and he's able to have this unfettered access.
Yeah, but you've got to remember something. You see, one thing that really annoys me is people go, oh, it's all right for you. I'm like, all right for me, why? Well, you can go and do this. But when I did these bands, they were unknown. They weren't you know, Led Zeppelin who said, oh, come and do what you want. They were unknown bands. And, you know, that I just became like this, like you would if you were going to a club to see a band, like the Chapel tonight, and you shot the band, you got friendly with them. I became the guy they knew. But they were all, you know, the Clash were a new band. The Jam were a new band. They're all my age. The Pistols were a new band. They only got famous because they went on TV and swore.
Yeah.
You know, but they were unknown bands completely.
Yeah.
AC/DC, you think of them here as a huge band. They were an unknown band. They were in England because they couldn't get arrested in Australia. You know, they were a pop band in Australia, so they moved to England. And it wasn't until Highway to Hell or Back in Black that they became this huge force like Metallica.
So I wanted to ask you, you know, as you're at these shows, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the technicalities of being a young photographer. I mean, you know, tell people what you're working with camera-wise and, you know, and what you're learning as you're shooting these early acts.
I mean, I'm not a technical person. I honestly know nothing really about photography, even more so, less about digital photography. But I had one camera, Pentax, and 2 lenses. And you'd go and just shoot these bands. You'd make what you call a contact sheet, which is all the pictures, and you took them down, showed them to them, and they'd go, oh, can you make me a print of that? Oh, I like that. And that's sort of, in a nutshell, quickly how, you know, I got on. And then I'd make prints and send them into, there was 3 newspapers, Sounds, NME, and the Melody Maker in England, and they were big newspapers. And because I was doing all the smaller bands, they would give me assignments to do them. You know, to go and, can you go and shoot, I don't know, The Clash or Susie and the Banshees at the Marquee. And that's sort of, in a nutshell, how I got going.
Yeah, yeah. When you were looking, and when you were taking these pictures early on, what were you looking for early on? Just the root of the action or the frame or?
No, I mean, I was a fan. Like, I was just wanting to go and see shows. You know, I mean, I enjoyed doing it, and it was like I was thinking, I can do The Who one day, which I did. But, you know, that was really what it was. You know, I didn't really enjoy the whole... Everyone looks at the punk scene in this rose-tinted vision, and it really was awful. And there was only 2 good bands, and that was the Pistols, who were like a rock band, and maybe the Clash when they weren't being too political. But the rest of the bands were terrible. And everyone looks at it now and thinks it's like this, you know, iconic thing. It wasn't. They were rubbish. You know, they were just something to do, you know.
You went from punk, obviously, we've talked about AC/DC and there was the Aerosmiths, and you did assignments for Sounds with Pete Makowski.
Pete
Makowski, who sadly passed away recently. Very sad. But, you know, you dummied up, you're a team, you're building a reputation. Tell us how you ran into what I would suspect is probably your first and probably really well-known connection with everyone here would be Iron Maiden. How did that connection happen?
With all the punk thing, there was a writer called Jeff Barton who wrote for Sounds, and rock, like all the metal kids would send him tapes, like Steve Harris, Joe Elliott. I actually met Def Leppard first because Joe Elliott sent him a tape, and Jeff wanted to do, and Jeff thought it was funny to do something that annoyed all the people that liked the Clash, you know. So we would go and do Def Leppard, and then he said, I've got this new band called Iron Maiden. And I shot them in a pub, and they played this heavy metal disco called the Bandwagon in Wembley in North London. and we would go, you know, and one night they had a head-banging contest to, like, Judas Priest, and they got Rob Halford down to judge it, you know. And it just sort of became, like I was trying to make the point, I became very friendly with Iron Maiden because they were just like me. I'd go and shoot them, and they got a record deal, and then slowly, you know, they started to happen. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think it is the word, yeah.
You know, so, and that's really how I got to do the bands I did. You know, I started doing all the new bands, which was Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, help me out here, Girl, which Phil Collins was in, who ended up joining Def Leppard, and Saxon, who were very bitter towards Def Leppard and Iron Maiden because they were older, Saxon, and even though I know Lars is a big fan of Saxon, they were more like a sort of Deep Purple band. They like Deep Purple, who were much older, you know, where rather than, they didn't want to, you know, rather than Iron Maiden.
You talked about Judas Priest there for a minute and Rob Halford. I mean, this has been something, I've got to talk about this for a moment. It's a long relationship with Halford, right? And I don't know if any of you have had the chance to see any of these photographs. You should look them up. Some absolutely blinding pictures of Rob Halford decked out in his full leathers outside the house he grew up in, his mum's house in Walsall.
Well, actually, I went to shoot Rob at home for Sounds, the newspaper, and I was expecting him to be in jeans and a t-shirt. And he had a full S&M leather outfit on with the cap. And he goes, "Do you like this?" I said, "Where'd you get that?" And he actually said, "I got it in San Francisco." He actually told me that. He did. And I shot him in this very suburban house, dressed up like that in the outside with a whip and like everything you'd find in a hardcore club here.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
and of course, I did, and I remember saying to Glenn Tipton at the time, he said, "Is he gay?" And he went, "He's very lonely. He's a very lonely bloke." And because he hadn't, and you know, Rob's long come out the closet. Since he hadn't come out, I remember he pretended that Ian Hill, the bass player, he dated his sister. So, which wasn't true at all. And I'm like, can't be right, you know.
Brilliant. It's a great, seriously, you really need to look this picture up. It's spectacular. I mean, there's obviously several of them, but it's a really great session. You know, one thing I think I want to get into early doors here is you've worked with and shot many big bands, many big artists. You're not afraid, it's fair to say, to stand up for yourself. You're not afraid to say what you need. You're not afraid to call people out when they need to be done. But what I'd like to know is, when did you learn that survival skill? I mean, it is a survival skill, right?
The worst job I ever did, I had to shoot Robert Plant, who was still in Led Zeppelin, for the cover of Sounds, the newspaper. And I was like really excited, thought, great, I'm shooting Led Zeppelin, I'm shooting Robert Plant. And Robert Plant is a big guy, you know, he's 6 foot something. And he walked up to me with a big smile on his face and said, "Do you know how to take a Robert Plant picture?" And I was like, "No." And he poked me really nastily and went, "Quickly." And he completely threw me. And I did this picture like he wanted, sitting on some steps and standing up. And it completely you know, I didn't do the picture I wanted to take because he so intimidated me. And after that, I thought, I am never going to let anyone do that to me again. And I haven't, because you end up taking their photograph. You don't take your own photograph. So, you know, when you start getting that, there's a saying, do not engage the disengaged. So I won't engage it. If anyone starts it, I say, get someone else. I mean, I still get it from people, and I'm like, fine, get someone else to do it. Yeah. Why do you want me here? You know? I mean, the worst, out the current bands, the worst people for that are Pearl Jam, who sell themselves as, no, really, it's true. Pearl Jam sell themselves as, like, if you like, your band, right? Much like Metallica. And Pearl Jam have more rules than in the army, you know? And they really are that, and it's odd. I was in this, is it Ohana? in Dana Point. There was a festival this summer, Ohana. Is it Ohana? I went to that with Taylor Hawkins and Dave Navarro, and it was really good. You know, Chad Smith was there, and it was all open. I remember Matt Cameron coming to see me and made a point of coming from the Pearl Jam enclosure to say hello. And then once you went out of where all the smaller bands were, you suddenly saw that it was Pearl Jam, and it was 2 bodyguards a person. You can't go here. You can't. I mean, they're very nice, but it was rules and regulations, you know. And it's strange that the bands you expect it from the least are the bands you get it from the most. And it's the bands you sometimes expect it from, you don't get it, which is a nice surprise, right. You know, even doing what I do.
I mean, I think generally that sort of control thing is everywhere in the world. I don't think it's just in rock and roll, right? So,
yeah,
I mean,
now it's very
generally,
much.
it's generally
you
the
know,
way
you
it
know,
is,
rock and roll now is very much a corporate world, and it's very much part of the wouldn't you say the corporate world?
I suppose it is. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You know, but anyway. So why don't we go back to a time?
Okay.
There was a lot more, you know, freedom. Craziness, whatever, and I'm gonna fire this up, and let's hope I know what I'm doing. If not, you might see. Okay, let's try that again. There it is. Okay, so this, I believe, was right around the first time you met these 4 gentlemen.
Yes,
this is a picture of Metallica, by the way, in case I don't know if any of you knew that, and it was taken by Ross. So just to straighten that out. So why don't you tell us about this?
So I was in Seattle actually doing Queensryche, who were the new big thing at the time, and Q Prime, who managed Metallica at the time, said. Peter Mensch, who was one of the managers, said, "Stop being such an asshole and go and shoot my new band, Metallica," on the way from Seattle. So I had to flew here. I went, is it El Cerrito? Where is it? Yeah, I flew to I went to El Cerrito, and I went out with Metallica, and that was the very first picture I took while it was still daylight in an alleyway somewhere, and it ended up on Ride the Lightning, I think on the 12-inch single. And I did them at home, which was like them on the couch, and which ended up the pictures inside Master of Puppets, just after. And that was how I met them, really. And I remember the main criteria I was told was make sure the bass player takes off those jeans and puts some straight jeans on. That was the direction I was given. I'm like, no problem, you know. Yeah. And he was like not having it. Look, you can see in his look, he was not having it at all, you know.
Quite possibly flared them out more.
Flared them out, and that was really how I met them. You know?
How did you find them? I mean, look at these.
How did I find them?
Men. I mean, look at this man second from the left with the curtains over his. I mean, you know, look at this, and look at that man on the far right. And he looks so angry. Well, was he that angry?
I went in this house there, all in the big TV, and it all had posters. It was like a fan. The best way to describe it was a teenager's bedroom that had taken over a house, right? And they had posters of UFO, Motorhead, AC/DC, all stuff I'd done on the wall, right? So, and then my idea, I was thinking, oh God, what can I do with them? So I came up with the idea to do this shot like Beggar's Banquet, the Rolling Stones, with this huge feast. Except they wanted Chinese. We ordered a Chinese meal.
I remember this picture.
And I meant to have it everywhere, them sitting around with it everywhere. But of course they were hungry, so they ate it. Which is this shot I've got of them on the kitchen table, you know. And really that was sort of how I met them, really.
Which you'll have to look that photo up. That he's not going to follow this one, but
that is going
to follow that one. Wow. I mean, you know, come on.
All right. Actually, I have to correct something.
Yeah, go on.
That was the second time I met Metallica, the first picture. The first time they played the Lyceum Ballroom. And I had to go and photograph them live. And then I did San Francisco the second time. And I remember seeing them live and thinking, oh my God, they can't play. This is terrible. You know, but you see, the charm, the great charm of Metallica that ended up appealing to everyone was that they were like you. You know, they weren't some supercilious big band on a big stage. You could connect with them.
Is that what you're saying to them at that point?
That's what I'm saying. That's not like, that was actually taken at the Palladium in LA where they opened for Armored Saint. And there's many, people will say, oh, we blew them off. They blew, they couldn't follow us. The only band I've ever seen where the headliner couldn't follow them was this show, which was Armored Saint, who tried to follow Metallica, and they really couldn't. They really, and I remember thinking, whoa, it was Adam Bomb, Metallica opening, Adam Bomb and Armored Saint headlining, and neither of them could follow them, and that is a fact,
Yeah. But, talk about...
Oh, no, I do remember this show. To wind up Cliff Burton, they told me, which James and Lars got me and Kirk to do, to tell him that Geezer Butler had come in, I'd brought him, was in the audience. So when he was doing his bass solo, and Cliff was genuinely nervous because he thought Geezer was there to see him. That's actually true. I just remembered that.
The tomfoolery. But Lars is really engaging with you there. He had, it's fair to say, a fascination with your work with Iron Maiden. Is that not correct?
Basically...
And talk about your early relationship with him during these early days.
Lars' favourite band, as you probably know, is Deep Purple, right? That was his original favourite group. And they tried out a photographer called Finn Costello, who I always really liked, who was Deep Purple's photographer. And he did this photo shoot with the background with lightning on it, and it was dreadful. And they hated it. And then I got brought in because I was Iron Maiden's photographer, and that was Lars' other band he liked. So I was the next person to try, because I did Iron Maiden. And I sort of clicked with them, which is how I eventually, they had no money then to pay me or anything. So I would go and, I next saw them in New York, where they must have been doing press or something there, because I was with Iron Maiden on our way back from Rock in Rio, and they were playing at Radio City, and Bruce Dickinson got sick, so they cancelled. So I ended up shooting Metallica on an aircraft carrier on like the coldest day of the year.
Yeah.
And we sort of rolled into each other from there.
Good. Let's.
That's
there
Donington.
We go. Now I know we wanted to talk a little bit about Cliff and how he was. We've already given you a little bit of a hint here. Cliff was not someone to be told what to do. In a very quiet, determined way, he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he would do it, as you found out with his Lionel Blair's, which
his flares. No, I found out much. I tell you what I noticed looking back on photographs now. When you look at group shots, and I really did not notice this at the time. If you look at it now, he looks like the adult in the group, which he was, and they all deferred to him, which I never noticed originally, because they would always, if something had to be said, they deferred to him. And I noticed that before he died, but I notice it more now looking back on the catalogue of photographs.
Yeah. I think that's very important.
There he is. One of the other things, I had to try and stop him headbanging, because they had no light show. And when we were doing pictures, I said, look, can you stop? And I remember at Pine Knob, which is in Detroit, he sort of stopped for a bit, and then he said, I can't. And just went bang, 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 bang. I gave up with that, because he had to headbang.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, he did. Indeed, he did. Yeah, there's another. You got some amazing pictures of Cliff, it has to be said. Obviously, there's the iconic fists, which I think everyone knows this picture, right? Everyone knows this picture, yes? So, yeah, but these are fantastic, really well captured. And then, of course, we come to this, which, what a night. Come on, let's talk about that. This was a comfortable evening for all, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 100 Club in London, and it was so hot in there that everything kept steaming up. It was the thing. And it was like, I remember doing that thinking, why? This was like going back to doing a punk show. I'm like, why do we? And they were having a great time. They thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, you can see how small it is.
Yeah, I'm going to use this. This is a little trick here. Look at that guy. I'd never noticed that guy until I was looking recently. It's brilliant.
I like the girl with the blonde hair, the goth.
Yeah. I thought, yeah. It's great when you go through it, the clicker, and you point. This guy's just really.
You know, you've got to look at Metallica, and when you look back, you realise they had a very broad spectrum of audience.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, there's a Showsack jacket for all of you. There is maybe the first recorded image on film of a Showsack bouncer at work in a futile task at that show, I can assure you. So, right. So, I think that this is just. I mean, look at that.
Exactly.
And I mean, let's talk a little bit about James back then.
Basically, what he's got on his guitar sort of sums up what they were about at the time. It was all about getting the show done and going drinking. It really was, you know.
I mean, tell people how it was. I mean, you can tell me because I've never asked you this before. I mean, just working with James back then, I mean, he was quite a shy person in many ways and quite reserved, but he was able to put up a wall and, you know, you're able to defend your turf. I mean, who would win these battles like when you were telling...
Because because not now, but then they would always defer to me because I'd done so much more. So they would always listen.
I'm going to drag you a bit. Look, give us an example. Like, you know, I want you to do this. No, I mean, what kind of...
No, the only thing they would not do, which took me a long time, was what we call a studio shoot with backdrops. You know, which ended up we shot a lot on by Justice to onwards, you know, to the Black Album we did. But before that, during Puppets and Ride, because of the Finn Costello shoot with the lightning, Cliff and James, they flatly refused to do it. I mean, I got them to do the first one with Jason when he joined the band, and that was like a tough, you know, getting James to agree to it, but then he just did. And then I look at the pictures now, and they're all holding beer. In every, you know, they're going, why are we holding beer? Steve Harris said that to me. He goes, why am I always holding a beer? I mean, I don't remember, you know. He just did. It was their crutch now, I don't know.
Oh, what's that?
Like cigarettes.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It was youth.
Yes.
It's that time, you know, that's what you did.
Yeah, and it's fair to say, you know, in that early period that you were shooting them, between, you know, 84, 85 and the Justice period, it was very young and it was very sort of bordering on reckless and fun and all sorts of...
Yeah, but I mean, I could get them to do things. I remember I did these pictures of them in the snow outside Sweet Silence Studios.
Yeah. Hang on, what?
Oh my God.
What? Hang on.
Oh!
Hang on. You want a chair? Let me get you a chair. Hang on. All right, I'm going to squeeze by you. Oh.
Sorry.
Who let you in? That's what I want to know.
Wait. Is that on?
It's not on. Hey, Mr. Sound Guy. Hello, now it's on.
Stop!
Hello, everyone.
All right, there you go.
First and foremost, I have a mask on and I'm not taking it off.
You've got a chair.
Because I am currently in the Metallica bubble, and that requires me to not take off my mask. So, first and foremost, how is everyone today? All right. How you doing, Ross?
I was enjoying it.
Oh, come on. Give me a kiss.
We were just discussing why you lot would not do pictures with backdrops because you did the Finn Costello shoot that you all hated with the lightning, remember?
Oh, yeah, the Finn Costello shot. Yeah, you know, back in the day, we had a lot of concepts about how we wanted to be photographed. When we first hooked up with Q Prime and Cliff Bernstein and Peter Mensch is one thing that he kept on repeating is no studio shots, no posed shots, live shots only. And it was only from, I think, the pleading of maybe you?
Yeah, me.
And I think it was you that we actually
started
doing shots that were not on stage. And I remember that because...
the first ones I could get you to do were soaking. After they'd played, the vibe would be good. They'd all be wet. And I wanted to do wet shots. And the only reason they agreed to do that was because Iron Maiden did them.
Yes, because exactly, because we loved looking at pictures of Iron Maiden that Ross had taken, and they're always so exuberant and full of energy and enthusiasm, and everyone always looked like they were having such a great time. But later on, I found out that it was probably because Ross probably said something extremely sarcastic, or maybe farted, or did put someone down.
I've got to ask you, tell people, I just asked Ross what it was like shooting you, when you were, a wee bad. What was it like being shot by him? Describe the first couple of sessions you did and how he would maybe talk to you, get you to do stuff.
We were in awe of Ross. For a variety of reasons, but mainly because of his work with Iron Maiden, because it was everywhere at that point in the early '80s. You couldn't open up a heavy metal magazine and not see Ross's pictures of Iron Maiden. They were everywhere. And also because he had shot my all-time favorite band, UFO, and actually knew people from UFO. And for me, it was just like, he was like a connection to my favorite band of all time. And as a 21-year-old kid like me, it was like, a step closer to my heroes.
Lars's thing, because I knew Richie Blackmore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we all had our reasons for.
I just told the story. Do you remember you told Cliff that I brought Geezer Butler to the Palladium before we went on, and he was really worried. He was really nervous.
Oh, yeah.
He played his bass solo because he thought Geezer was watching.
Yeah. I remember that because that was also the tour where Geddy Lee showed up at one of our shows on the Ride the Lightning tour. We played Toronto, and all of a sudden we got a message backstage that Geddy Lee was in the audience, and Cliff Burton just freaked out. He started pacing. He started like smoking pot, and he was like, "Oh my God, Geddy Lee!" He could not settle down. He was so nervous and just like happy at the same time that Geddy Lee was there. And then Ross tells him that Geezer Butler is out there one night, same thing. Just starts pacing around, super nervous, grab a beer. Yeah.
So, obviously, we will be talking more later about this wonderful book, Metallica, the Black Album in Black and White. And strangely, as you walked in, an image appeared from it that I'd like you to look at. And tell us, and give us a spot memory of that picture if you have one.
Yeah, that is right when it looks like right when we arrived in Moscow, which was pretty surreal because we arrived at the gig, and I remember just like a little ocean of people, not just a mass of people, but an ocean of people that went on, and not only an ocean of people, an ocean of soldiers accompanying that ocean of people.
Beating
people. It seemed like there were 2 soldiers for every person. And right there, that was me taking a chance and getting a little closer to all that was happening there, because the vibe there was so thick, you can cut it with a knife, because communism had just come down. There was a sense of what's going to happen. Something can happen at any minute. The government can change their minds and come down and arrest everyone there. It was crazy. It was, if there's ever a time where I felt there was a country under some sort of point where they could tip into total chaos, it was Moscow at that time. It was crazy.
So I'll tell you what, do you mind sitting?
Hey.
And by the way...
Yeah, you were there too, bro. You were there filming us on stage. This man right here, Jean-Claude. Right here, Jean-Claude, get up, come on. This man is responsible for more Metallica documentary footage since the late 80s. This is the man responsible for Cliff and All, people. He's the one who filmed us going into the liquor store and stealing a bunch of booze. I don't know if you know that story, but that was him. following us into the liquor store, egging us on. And he's still here now. I love it. Good to see you, bro. Yeah.
Let me invite you to help us look through the first few frames of the book, which we were going to do. So I'm going to use my clicker here. Should be working.
No, that's the 100 Club.
Oh yeah, where Jason passed out.
There we go. Now let's between the pair of you, let's have a little chit chat about. Do you want to swap chairs? It would be much easier because you can. See
I'm fine, man.
Okay.
Okay, so that was on top of Niels Losauer's studio on Yucca Avenue in LA, 1990. We had just finished the Black Album.
The point to this, I flew in and no one was really enjoying it.
No, because we were so stressed out about...
No. And I went home, and Lars actually said, why don't you go home and come back in a week and everyone will be in a better frame of mind? And I did. Yeah.
That was because we were just we just started recording the Black Album, and it was when things were starting to get pretty intense with just the whole situation there, having Bob Rock, we were still feeling that whole situation. We were feeling it out, and there was a lot of stress, for sure. But I remember that not being too particularly productive.
Or inspiring.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask you, at that point, were you still, you're on the cusp of making this huge record, you're deep into it, but are you still in thrall with Ross as a photographer? Are you still at the point where you're like, wow,
No, they
Well, no, by that time we'd known Ross for 5 years. He was like one of us. He was part of the gang.
They were more comfortable with me.
Yeah, I mean, Ross and I have always been pretty close ever since, we started working together. I mean, so it was always great having Ross around as far as I was concerned. I mean, he was just like one of the gang, fellow delinquent. Come on, he's a rascal.
But
He is.
But did you ever question anything he wanted you to do? I mean, actually, while
we didn't question anything back then. We just did it.
You never came up with an idea. You're like, absolutely not. You can't be doing that.
No.
Well, back then, I mean, we gave him a lot of artistic license. I mean, back then we were just more concerned about the music, and then Ross came and did pictures, and then we go back to the music again. It wasn't until later on when we got older, we began to care about more things like that, which comes with becoming older. And so, I mean, the whole perspective kind of changed.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing, though. I mean, Ross is famous for making us travel thousands of miles to stand in front of a white wall. Yep. Yes. He still does it to this day. Fly him out to Hawaii, white wall, there it is.
Aha.
Hey.
Now, come on. You look at that picture, what do you think and what do you remember?
See, that's the beauty of Ross's perspective, his vision. He watches the show. He knows the music. He knows the dynamic of the band. He knows the dynamic of the personalities. And he knows the show. And so he's able to just sit there and just look around, walk, look, check it out, click, 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 click. And he does it really quickly. He can, sum up a situation a lot quicker than I can when I have a camera, for sure. And I think, this is a pretty good example of that. He captures the spontaneity of it. There's a lot of energy. The composition, shooting into lights is always difficult, extremely difficult. The shot is slightly out of focus, but that just adds to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to ask you, on the Black Album tour, I mean, did you very quickly learn or try to learn where the band were going to be at certain times, in certain songs, and so you catch that shot one night, and if you didn't, you get it another night? Was that how you were shooting?
No, because at that point, it wasn't a worked out routine, was it? You were more like you just did what you wanted. It was later. It was only much later then formulated when you had bigger shows.
Yeah,
Was,
I mean, a whole attitude with like the Snake Pit was that it was just like, it was a big playground, but you had to be at certain spots at certain times because there's certain pyro cues and whatnot. Before that, it was just kind of like, a free-for-all for us on stage. I mean, we never had any sort of choreographed anything ever. To this day, we don't choreograph anything. We just go over here because it seems like the place to stand. It's just like, or there's like I see familiar faces, so I stand in front of the familiar faces. I mean, it's just like anyone else, I guess.
And then on the puppets tour, it's just a load of cardboard crosses. Wasn't it?
Oh yeah, the cardboard crosses. Yep. We've had some good ones on stage. Yeah.
See, next one. Aha.
See? I mean,
actually, he did that last night. I got a picture of him.
Really? He that's something that he only used to do. He actually did it for you, Ross.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, he did it for Ross. That's a great shot. I mean, it's just like it's so dynamic. I could even tell when that was. That was a 1993 on the Guns N' Roses Metallica tour.
That is.
Yeah. I recognized the backdrop and I recognized the drum kit, and so I mean, that's very kind of like it captures how things were back then. It's just like. Fuck it.
I'm going to ask you both again something that's interesting to me about how the whole approval process works with photographs and with bands, and especially at this era. I mean, there is, word that, you're obviously having to turn these pictures around very quickly. This is film we're talking about. Remember, this is not digital, this is film. Things are having to be prepped, they're having to be
no, we would get contact sheets.
I mean, Ross would show up with literally boxes of contact sheets. They're 8 or 9 inches thick of just contact sheets. We go through all of them. And they're only 8 or 9 inches thick because we procrastinate and say, okay, we'll do it, we'll get to it. And then it would build up and up. And that by the end of the year, we'd have to go through a mountain of pictures and slides with a loop.
There you go. How many photos do you think from the Black Album tour has still never been approved?
I've got found. I mean,
So Ross would send us slides, and if we didn't like them, we'd just throw them away. And, I regret that now because that was actual documentation of, how we were back then. And literally, there would be trash can just filled with rejected slides and,
Actually, Lars has got all of them because he said to me, I found a whole load of your pictures if you want them, which he's never given me back.
Well, that's typical.
Do you remember, we put this in a tour book. James, I had a picture of James with perfect hair, and he wrote on it, "Hella no way."
Yeah.
He printed it with that on it.
Yes.
And then we had one of Cliff. It was a group shot, and they were sitting on Drum Riser in Birmingham rehearsing.
Yep.
He blew me a kiss. I got a picture, and he ripped the slide. He ripped the slide up and threw it in the trash, and we found it.
I found it, and I brought it to Ross, and we put it in the tour book. On the Master Puppets tour book, you'll see a picture of Cliff. Blowing a kiss.
Whatever.
We were so mean to each other back then.
Oh, there we go. I want to go back to this one for a minute because this is a pretty iconic.
That was when we first started doing studio shoots, isn't it?
That was when we're on the whole Black Album thing, trying to do black portraits. How can we get to do pose shots to conceptually work in with what the Black Album was all about? And I remember on the Black Album you have those black portrait shots. That's Ross. That was Ross's idea, and we were trying to do a bunch of different experiments like that, and I think this is one of them. Another one that we were trying to just incorporate none more blackness into the thing.
Talk a little bit about this shot.
But I have to say though, there was always a problem with Jason Newsted not looking relaxed enough in the shots.
Jason Newsted would always be really uncomfortable. We'd say chin up. He had this pose where he'd stand like this. Do you remember?
Yeah, he would.
He'd go, stop doing it. Because they were relaxed around me by that point, very much. Weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
And
yeah,
he-
of
and
course.
he was sort of the new guy, the Jason New Kid. We
Yeah.
called him, didn't we?
Yeah, and a lot of times I remember a lot of the shots were scrapped because Jason just he looked uncomfortable or just looked tense or just didn't look relaxed enough. We'd all like be really relaxed, and then it was like really apparent. So I remember a lot of shots went by the wayside because of that.
Yeah. There we go. That is surely the Ripper
What song are you
in
playing?
action. Yeah, go on.
Come on, what song is that?
Fucking hell, I don't know. It's got to be probably For Whom the Bell Tolls. I wonder what happens to that guitar. That's obviously during the Black Album tour, but I would say about maybe 92 or 93. And that's a really great shot. Is that in the book, Ross? I've never seen that shot. Okay, well, I've never seen that shot before.
Well, maybe it's not in the book. You got to understand, I have so much Black Album because it was shot on Neg and Slide, and I was the only person they liked to shoot with, and they became huge. And we had to supply magazines all the time, didn't we? And press shots, and there was always a need for pictures, for merchant, for everything. So I could do 12 Black Album books with stuff you haven't seen.
Yeah.
So that's probably not in the book.
I seem to remember you coming out like literally like every 6 weeks for just a new round of shots.
I mean, Ross, when you were out there shooting Kirk, I mean, talk about what you looked for when you were.
Well, he had a habit, which I got him out of, was always playing like this. It's like a magnet was pulling him into the amp. And I used to make him turn. That's true, isn't it? And I was to go, come on, turn the other way.
I think I needed to go to a chiropractor, and and once I started going to a chiropractor, I started playing more straight on.
And also, people think the best way to get a picture of James is dead on the mic as he's singing. It's not. The trick with James is as he moves away from the mic for a second, you'll get the picture, not into the mic. And everyone, they run in and they see him like this, growling, and they all think, right, bang, bang, bang. But to get the better shot is when he's slightly off, isn't it? You have to know that.
I agree.
sort of know when they know how they work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the one thing that also differentiates Ross from most photographers is we'll be on stage and he'll be in the pit and he'll go.
Yeah. I did that last
He actually
night.
did it last night. Okay.
So you're actually during a show.
Yeah, it's my Fellini moment.
Yeah.
And you notice.
Herb Ritz moment.
And you actually notice. And while you're playing, while you're focusing, you're like,
Hey,
blimey,
he's seeing something I'm not. How the hell do I know?
No, when I do a photo shoot, I can do that to the drummer, and he knows what I want him to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's his head, just like, and they sort of naturally, even if it's been a while, we sort of go into it, we sort of fall into it, don't we? Where we just know how it should look.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of naturally just kind of get a feel for it.
That's after the day on the green. My idea was, instead of shooting them in a nice stadium, let's shoot them in a messy, dump the mess.
Yeah, I remember that. That was after the day on the green. We played with Faith No More and Queensryche, I believe, in 1991, and that was after the stadium had emptied, and we had all been backstage, patiently waiting for them to empty, and it took a while. Remember, and then it took a while for us. For Ross to get us all together, and then we all marched out there. We were complaining the whole time because we wanted to be with all our friends and family because it was a hometown gig. And it's a great shot, but that's why we look a little annoyed too.
Was anyone here at this day on the green? Anyone?
All right.
There is one, two
All right.
people.
It was a good show.
Two, well,
Yeah.
Three, four, five, actually. 5 people. That's because you included us, right?
It was a pretty momentous show for us because we just finished recording the Black Album. The Black Album had been out for like 3 or 4 months, and there was this huge momentum behind it. And then we put the tickets to this show on sale, and literally sold out in like 3 or 4 days, and we couldn't believe it. I mean, it was really a moment for us as a band, as a local band, in San Francisco local band.
My memory of it, but it was a total pain in the arse because Bill Graham made the stage so high, you couldn't shoot from the front, you had to shoot on stage.
Oh, really?
My shots were across and behind because he was at the stage, because he was quite clever. He didn't do it because he did it so that any pictures you took, you could tell it was a Bill Graham event. It was quite clever how he did it.
Yeah. I seem to also remember I was so excited by the end of the set that I climbed down into the pit and started slapping on fans' hands because I was just so happy to to have played a day on the green. And maybe you took pictures of me down amongst all the people down there in the front. Can't remember.
Just give us a little indication again. I think so many people here are used to the digital age of photography where you're just like, okay, it goes, it happens. How long does it take from that shot being taken to that shot being seen?
Well, I had to go and develop the film. You know, all photographers, there's a photographer, Michael Zagaris over there, I can see, and he had to do that. And we'd all go and have to go to labs, make contact sheets, and then you had to make a set for each band member, a set for them, give the management once they'd marked them all, and everybody would mark what they wanted, and then we'd decide what we wanted to do. It was actually more, I think, productive then, because now you just email people pictures.
Yeah, and everyone takes their time.
Emails, don't they?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah. I mean, you know, it's incredibly convenient nowadays, for sure.
And also because photography then was less disposable. It wasn't about your Instagram picture tonight or the picture you need to post now. You actually, I think, people thought about it a bit more, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there definitely was a lot more thought and process put into pictures now because there's so much more at stake. Now, you know, people it's nothing to just take a picture.
It's interesting. I mean, you wouldn't have had people come up to you on that tour asking for selfies, right? With an instant camera.
Let me make a point about things, and this is last night, and you're all there, right? So
you guys are all guilty.
I tell you what I hate at shows now, and this includes all of you, is that
typical Ross Halfin right here. This should be good.
No, go on. When I try and do a shot before on this tour, and I particularly noticed it at Judas Priest show about 5 years ago in London, is that Glenn Tipton got into the barricade and walked along to the crowd. And all of you last night, instead of engaging with him or James or Lars, you're going like this. And everyone's standing like this. You know, and it takes away, I think, from the enjoyment of what you've come to see and the fact that you're meant to join in and respond. And instead of all responding how you used to, you're all standing there going like this. And tell me one of you who wasn't doing that. It's a fact. So, tomorrow night, put away your phones. Enjoy the show. Engage.
Well, I mean, my thoughts on that are, you know, you have a choice. You can either experience the moment or capture the moment. The choice is yours, you know. That's all there is to it. Everyone has a preference.
I did see someone in the last tour Metallica show standing with the phone going like this. Honestly, I did in Paris. And I'm thinking, what are they going to watch? I mean, it's just like going like this. To like, you know, I don't know, to like Whiplash or something.
I think the important thing to remember is that there are plenty of fine photographers and videographers out there capturing it for you.
Yeah.
Right? So
No, I mean, I am guilty of going on YouTube and looking up stuff. Oh, that's good. I have to watch
Yeah, hey,
that.
no. Hey, someone just posted Scorpions from Swiss TV, 1977. And man, I've watched that thing like 8 times in the last week, all right?
Yeah.
But my point being, that's something that was filmed on camera, on film, and then it was lost. And it was literally lost for like 30, 40 years. And then it got rediscovered. I saw it on YouTube. And I was just so impressed. And I was thinking, nowadays, people can just go to a show and just film by themselves, They have everything they have is just, and they can just do it. And, that in itself, there's some merit to that because,
Okay, I'm going to bring you to one more picture.
I guess we're on the subject a little bit too long.
It appears to me, yes, quite.
Now,
correct.
stop. If that picture was taken now, all you'd see is that. You would.
True.
You would just
True.
see a load of phones.
So, I mean, you'll each have a memory of this picture. So I'd like you both to share your memory of...
That was Nuremberg?
Werchter.
Werchter. Okay, yeah, Werchter.
Yeah.
All right,
That's the last show of the tour.
Yes, it was. And we were very, very excited about that because it had been at that point, over 2 years or something or other. And we were just ready at that point just to go home and stay in one spot for a while because we'd been moving around so much in those 2+ years. And I remember after that show, went backstage, and then we had that whole champagne thing.
That's in the book.
Yeah, and we were drinking champagne. None of us even drank champagne back then. We were drinking champagne. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, and that was the end of the Black Album. Well, what we thought was the end of the Black Album tour. We went back on tour like 6 months later or something.
That's the look of a very, very happy man.
And I remember everyone stayed up all night carrying on, and then we wanted to go to the airport in the morning.
Oh yeah, that was horrible because we didn't get any sleep, and we were all still drunk, and we were waiting for the plane, and we were literally lying on the floor of the airport. All eight or 12 of us, just a mess. It was a mess. Yeah.
So I know you have to go. Before you leave, can I ask you to do one more thing before you go? Can you share one of your favourite Ross memories from the Black Album tour?
That's not for public consumption.
Pay attention. This is
No, I can't do that.
See?
No, I can't do. No, I like Ross too much. No, I'm not going to do that. But I will say that there has been for a long time, and it started from the very first time Ross came out. There's a long-standing tradition. When Ross would come out, we'd always go out and have sushi, we'd start drinking sake and Sapporo, and by the end of the night, we were just into something crazy and having a really funny, great time, like people used to do back then, or like we used to do back then, and there were countless nights of that. And that's what supplemented his daytime activity of photographer at day, professional partier with all of us at night. He's just he just fell right into that kind of thing. And so I have a lot of recollections of, with Ross, and a lot of them, thank God, I can't recollect. But, I will say it's always been great. When Ross comes out on tour, we're always really, really into it. And, I can't stress more. I mean, he still is a part of the Metallica family, the Metallica gang. We weren't the Metallica family back then, though. We were the Metallica gang of hooligans, We really, truly were. And, I'm not particularly that proud of it, but, he's been with us since the very beginning through all those ups and downs, and here he is now. And it's a great thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kirk Hammett.
Yes.
Come on.
Big round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, well, thank you very much for swinging by.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so hopefully I will see you, at least some of you maybe, tomorrow night, okay? Yeah, and you guys have a nice, safe journey back to wherever you may be going, and please be safe. All right, we'll see you guys. Cheers.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thank you. Okay, I've got to turn this off. Someone can come and I'm going to just leave that there. Why don't we say in 10 minutes we'll take a round of questions. So if you have a question, start lining up behind this mic and you'll be able to ask it. So, that was brilliant.
One of you.
An interloper.
An interloper.
So
yeah.
so now we're going to go back. Let me flick back through, and as I was saying, obviously we're here to discuss the book. There is something that I would like to show you, and a little video presentation, if I can get it working, which apparently I can't. So let's try one more time. There we are. Once again, thanks to Real Art Press, and thanks to everyone who helped bring this book together. And, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself and start asking a few questions? Let's hear from you guys, and let's get some more questions going. Please, do not be shy. Ross would not expect it. He will be insulted if you are shy, so I expect you to come with your A game. Please, step on up.
All right, can you hear me? I'm from Vancouver, Canada. Thank you for doing this, Ross and Steffan. Ross, can you give us a little bit of dirt on each of the current and or past band members, Metallica band members, when it comes to shooting them? I know you've mentioned before that Kirk's super worried about his hair, but give us something that none of us know when it comes to photographing the Metallica guys.
Can I?
Well, I don't know. It depends what it is. You're looking at me like I'm meant to know. This is a very, very scary moment. Let's see what happens.
Doesn't have to be anything negative. It could just be
No,
that.
there's dirt on them. All right, I'll put this. James Hetfield is the shyest member of Metallica. You actually think of him as being the force, right? But when you actually deal with him normally, he's the most reserved, you see. Lars, who everyone sometimes thinks can be highly annoying,
Shocking.
is actually the force. As in Star Wars, without Lars, it would probably stall the train. He really does. But, it takes him forever to come to the table, but when he comes to the table, he's there like slamming into you. And I mean that in a good way. Yeah. He really is. Anything that happens with Metallica, really, fully happens, Lars is behind it. And I'll give him, full credit for that. Yeah. Kirk is, as you can see, a bit all over the place, but Kirk's got a great heart. Jason was the one I probably knew. I didn't know him well, but I engaged with him the least, because they were all, it was, James, Jason sort of attached himself to James, is the best way to put it. And then it would be, if I went out, it would be Kirk, Lars and I,
Yeah.
you know, in a sense. And really Lars, I think, came to the fore after Cliff died. Someone had to give the band direction, you know, with the media, with work, and that is 100% Lars Ulrich, and he deserves really good credit for it, you know. And Robert Trujillo's just a nice person. It really is a great guy. And, you know, that's as much as I want to say.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for your question. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris. Live in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. First, I did want to say thank you for continuing to support all the band's endeavors. I was actually able to get one of your garage prints at the first All Within My Hands auction. I absolutely love that print, so thank you for that. I guess the first question I had is, you know, I think there's been a commentary in the music world of, with all the technology that's come about, has been made it way easier for people to make music, but also kind of maybe make it too perfect. Dave Grohl talked about in the Sound City documentary about almost losing its humanity a little bit, because you lose the little imperfections, you lose the little things that make music, or, you know, human. And I was thinking about the parallels of that to photography, where, you know, now with the cameras and phones are getting way better. There's a lot more automation in photography. It's also, you know, it's expanded the photography world for a lot of people and got into that and maybe inspired them. But at the same end, maybe there's a danger where maybe it may become, you know, too perfect, and photography almost loses a part of its humanity and the little imperfections and the human element. So I was curious if you had any commentary about how you feel like the current state of photography is, and where do you feel like it's going in the future?
The current state of photography, where it is now these days. Am I correct? That's essentially what you're asking.
I think photography is in a terrible state now because, and I mean this, any idiot with a phone thinks he's a photographer, and they're not a photographer. That is not photography. Just because you can crop a thing on a phone, that is not photography. I think and people don't think, they just go bang, 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 and that will do. Well, it doesn't do, which is why the pictures aren't good, you know? And people should always, you know, I mean, unfortunately, when you go and shoot bands now, they only normally let people shoot 2 or 3 songs, which was actually caused by Rush, because Rush got fed up in 1980 with newspaper photographers using flash, and they had a big light show with all their lasers. So I think it was Geddy Lee said, first 3 songs and then no flash. And what he meant was after 3 songs, turn your flash off. But then that got morphed into first 3 songs. So when people go and shoot shows now, they just aim at someone and go bang, 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 you know, and they think that, you know, and the best way to get a picture is wait slightly, and you can take a better photo. But because of that, people have been forced into, if they're doing it for a newspaper, just getting anything. They don't care what it is. There's no quality control or quality. So I think, unfortunately, photography is in a terrible state. You know, if people said to me, I want to be a photographer, what should I do? I'm like, no one wants to pay you. They all want it for free. I mean, I don't do the Rolling Stones purely for the reason is they're going, we can let you, you know, you can come and shoot us, and we'll let you have 2 pictures for your portfolio. I'm like, I'll pass, thanks. You know, I mean, that's the level of it. You know, I'm sorry, but that's true. And it's in a bad, you know, a bad state. And Cliff Bernstein, who actually is one of Metallica's managers, once said to me a long time ago, he said, if someone does a job, they should be paid for it, whether it's $10 or $10,000. You should be paid for your work. And the moment you start doing it for nothing, you will never get paid. Because it's not like an artist will say, that was really nice of them, thanks for doing that. The mentality becomes, well, we didn't have to pay him before, why are we paying him now? And that, unfortunately, is, you know, go and work for, you know, a real newspaper if you can. You know, I mean, you know, like the San Francisco Chronicle or the Times or something, a real newspaper, and that will help you to become a real photographer. That's, you know.
And real quick, do you have any favorite venues that you like shooting at because of what the...
So,
It's your
I'm
mask.
really
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
The mask is
Do you have any favorite venues that you like to shoot at because of when it brings out of the
Venues.
artist, or when it brings out of the scenery, or when it brings out of the fan base for any given particular venue?
What do you mean, gig venues?
Yeah.
The Fillmore was good last night, apart from the fact they had the AC on full. It was freezing. It was like being in a fridge. In London, there was a venue called the Hammersmith Odeon. They used to have what you call a pit, a barricade. That was always good. The worst, I'll tell you the worst ones. The Hollywood Bowl is the worst venue in the world to take pictures at because it's run by the city of Los Angeles and they're just a bunch of Nazis, you know, who run it. And it's just impossible to deal with. You know, whatever you're doing is wrong.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joris Snelk. I'm from Amsterdam, Netherlands. Question, do you, as an artist, look at other photographers and admire some of them? And which photographers are they?
Current photographers, I start to look at fashion stuff, really. I don't look at rock photography, because, you know, I mean, the photographers I admired was Finn Costello, who did Deep Purple. I thought he was a great photographer. Michael Zagaris, who's here somewhere, he's a great photographer. He's from the Bay Area. Jim Marshall was a great reportage music photographer. He was from here. And who do I admire? I don't really look at music stuff. You know, I look at...
Not music, even other photographers.
It's hard to think. I mean, no, I don't really look at any. I mean, that's not arrogance, that's the truth. You know, I don't really look at anything, you know, oh goodness, that's a good... I can't think, honestly. Honestly, that's the honest truth. It caught me off guard.
Yeah,
who I'd think was great, you know. I think one of the problems is for music photographers per se to be great, they need access, and they don't get access anymore. So that's, you know.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you think to be a great music photographer, you also have to be able to take great photos of things other than music? I mean, you take lots of travel photos, you do lots of non-music stuff, which, by the way, again, I'd encourage you all to look up. You know, you did a book called Sojourns.
Well, I'll tell you what I have gone back to. During the 80s and the 90s, I liked to use lighting, like Annie Leibovitz did, you know, the covers of Rolling Stone. And now I so regret using lighting. I only use it when I really want to. And I like shooting available light reportage because it makes you think more and makes you think about where you're placing someone, where the light is, and what you should do. And there was a great quote by Terence Donovan, who was a fashion photographer who's dead. And he was given a class, and they said, what lighting do you use? You see someone, you know, when they shoot, say, Rihanna or Beyonce, they've got like, or even Annie Leibovitz now, when she does a Vanity Fair cover, there's like 20 lights, you know, lighting, soft boxes. And Terence Donovan said, you only need one light, the same as there's only one sun. And if the sun can light you with one light,
wow, that's brilliant.
You only need one light. Why do you need 20? If you need 20, you don't know what you're doing, which I thought was a good analogy. It was a great analogy to think of when taking a picture.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lazar. I'm from Serbia. Back in May of 2019, I was fortunate to have a ticket for the Snake Pit in Lisbon, which was the first night of the stadium leg of European tour. And I was fortunate also because I was able to see you work, because you were there as well. Lisbon in Portugal in 2019. Anyways, I was fortunate to be able to watch you work as well, because you were taking pictures. And it was a funny moment when, because you had access to the set list, obviously, and you were commentating on the fact that they chose one particular song to be the first song of the encore, and you weren't really a fan of that song. So my question is...
I know what the song is, I can get it, go on.
And you had quite a good idea, or quite a good suggestion what it should have been. But my question is, does your relationship with the band extend to other aspects apart from photography? I mean, are you able to tell them stuff like, maybe you should, switch the set list a bit, or
Are you suggesting that Ross maybe could possibly design the set list?
No, I can't.
I don't think so. But I mean, does he get his point across, or does he just keep it to himself?
I will answer this in a different way, right? I mean, I remember saying to Pete Way at UFO, "Oh God, you're not going to play Love to Love and Lights Out," which I got really sick of. And Pete said, "Well, we have to play it because you hear it every night, but people hear it every 2 years. They want to hear it." And Ian Hunter of Mott the Hoople, if you don't know who he is, said he once went to see Procol Harum. Their one big hit was called Whiter Shade of Pale. It's a standard. And he said they didn't play it, and he felt cheated. So if bands like Metallica don't play a certain 4 or 5 songs, which is One, Nothing Else Matters, Puppets, Sandman, Sad But True, you would be going, why didn't they, you think there's something, unless you're a hardcore fan and want to hear something obscure, you think there's something wrong. But to someone who's the general audience, you want to hear that. It's like going to see, I don't know, Led Zeppelin and they're not doing Whole Lot of Love. You expect it.
Well, Lemmy used to say about Ace of Spades, I mean, that's, as much as he respected and was happy to have written the song, it was also somewhat of a millstone because he had to play it.
Yeah,
So,
Iron Maiden have to do the Number of the Beast, don't they?
They certainly
do. Run to the Hills, which I hate, But I mean, but it's not so much you hate the song. It's, there's certain songs you've heard so much. It's like, I can't listen to Stairway to Heaven. I can't listen to Freebird, thank you. I can't listen to Smoke on the Water. I can't listen to Nothing Else Matters. Not because I don't like the songs, it's just that they've been played so much, they sort of, you switch off to them. That's... What's the song here? Huh?
Well,
what song was it here? Nothing Else Matters.
Well,
It was the first encore.
Truth be told, it was Spit Out the Bone, and you wanted the Four Horsemen.
What? Sorry, you have to take the
Sure.
Sorry.
It's muffling.
Truth be told, it was the Spit Out the Bone, and you wanted the Four Horsemen instead.
Yeah, I always like the Four Horsemen. I like the Four Horsemen and Whiplash, and I mean, Lars went, it's the same song. To me, they're my. I like. Listen. New Metallica's great, but I like early Metallica.
Just say it. You like bang, bang, bang.
I like bang, 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 bang. I like. That's what I like.
You have to just share this. Come on, I have to drag this out of you. What did you tell them about the title track of And Justice for All?
After they played, I said, "Justice is this," because I so hated it originally, and it would just go on and on. Dun da 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 da, boom 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 boom. And I used to say to him, "Justice is this, justice is that." Justice is 9 minutes long, and Lars always loved that, didn't he?
He did.
He would
Still
always say
does
that.
hysteric. It's still a
does
giggle.
that.
Yeah.
And actually saying that, when they played it, which they don't always now,
quite like it.
I actually quite like it. But
There
on
you
the
go.
Justice tour, I was like, oh, no, I'm going to the toilet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Ross. My name is Amr. I was wondering if you had an opinion, and if you'd care to share the opinion on any of the non-Ross Halfin era of Metallica photography. Particularly, there was a time in the mid-'90s, like the Load booklet, where the photographs were very controversial, certainly among the fan base. I was wondering if you would care to share your opinion on that.
It's a good question, asking you to comment maybe about the mid-'90s and I presume you're talking about...
Like the photos in the Load booklet where, they're in the makeup and all that.
Well, I was, the band decided they wanted to go for more artsy photographer, Anton Corbin. He's a very, very good photographer. But he's not a Metallica photographer. And and that's a fact. I don't care how you say it. Anton takes amazing pictures of you too. But shooting Metallica, to me personally, it doesn't look right. It looks like he's trying to make them, it looks like they're trying to be something they're quite not, right? But don't get me wrong, they're very great, they're very nice pictures. I think my strength with Metallica is that I know what you will want. I know that what they are underneath it all. That's what I think, really. So that,
I mean, do you think it also comes down to the strength and time of relationships? I mean, you talked about Anton and U2. Anton's relationship with U2 is incredible. I mean,
I could not go and shoot U2 and compete with Anton Corbijn. That's a fact. I couldn't go and shoot Depeche Mode and compete with Anton Corbijn because they are his bands.
Do you think generally, when a photographer works with a band for a long time, and it is as much about the electricity between you, the energy between you to understand.
I find with Metallica, if I do them a lot, it gets a bit stale, in what I'm trying to do. But if I haven't been with them for a while and I come back, and once you sort of drag them to the get them used to the fact that I'm here to do stuff, they're great. And it works really well. And it works really quickly, I like doing them in Australia because there's not, you're trying to do them in a hometown show. Everybody has families. Everybody's got stuff going on. There's too much going on. I would go to the big day outs or the stadium shows in Australia, in Perth or Melbourne, and we'd be sitting around, the weather's good, and I'd be able to get them to do stuff, go out and do stuff, and it would be productive. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hello, Ross. Hank from New York City. I was just curious what you prefer when it comes to black and white photography and what you prefer when it comes to color photography, what you like from both worlds, or what you don't like for that matter.
I like black and white photography because I think if you look at a picture that's 50 years or more old, it stands up more, But saying that, digital photography now in color, I still think black and white film is better than black and white digital, but saying that, color digital is way better than color film.
Okay.
You can shoot in darkness. You can shoot, it was limited what you could do, when bands were early on without lights, before they had the big production. And really with digital color now, you can shoot anything. So it's horses for courses. It depends on what you're trying to do,
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hi, Ross. This is Michel Cury from Brazil. Sorry for my voice, but last night was crazy, so...
Should leave that to them.
Yeah, tomorrow we have more. And it's a pleasure to talk also to Mr. Chirazi. Read a lot of So What, so thank you for that.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm from Brazil. I recall my bedroom with a lot of Metallica posters, and now I realize they were shot by you, so I appreciate that. And my question for you is, imagine you were a rock star, and would you ask Mr. Ross Halfin to take a picture? Which picture would be this one?
Of me? Oh, God.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
What would I want a picture of?
Or where would you like to have
Where
this?
would I want a picture of? Well, probably one of the things Lars likes, which is he always, if they're playing a stadium, he always wants me to get up when it's just like when he stands on his kit, and you'll suddenly you'll all be surprised and you'll get up, and he wants that shot, and that is when I like to get the shot where I feel the band have engaged with you. It's an immediate shot, it's a surprise. And that's always, I've got one of him from, is it Stade? What's the one in Paris?
Stade de France.
Stade de France, where he's standing on the kit, and you can see this vast crowd of people. And I think that I would, if someone was taking a picture, that is what I want. Or there's one from the one in Mexico, which is
Foro Sol.
Foro Sol, where all the pyro goes off, and the pyro lit the crowd. You can see the spectacle. I'd like the spectacle.
I agree. Yeah.
Nice. All right, thank you, man.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask you a quick question before our next guest comes. No, come on up. I'm going to cut you off for a minute. Sorry, just to ask a question. I'm going to ask you, Ross, which band member do you think would take a good photograph?
Lars has got a great eye. The last picture of me with long hair, Lars took underneath the statue of Christ in Rio. And that night I went to the show and I walked in the dressing room and that's when they used to shave their heads here. And James went zzz with some razors and went, gotcha. And I went, no. And I literally took a chunk out of my hair. And I went, all right, then do the other side. So, of course, he went all the way to the skin. And I went all the way to the skin. I was married at the time, and I remember going home to London. And my wife at the time looked at me and she went, how old do you think you are? 14? Look at you. You know, and literally, I went to the barbers and cut my hair short, and I've never had it long since. So it's Hetfield's fault I don't have long hair, and Lars has got a great eye as a photographer, and he took the last picture of me with long hair. So
if Lars ever goes to take a picture
Lars
of you,
has
look
got
around
a
the
great,
corner, make
Lars
sure there's
really
nobody
does have a good eye as a photographer. Lars is really good. I'd hire him. Let's put it that way. That's my photographer, Lars Ulrich. There you go.
There you go. Wow.
Excellent.
And thank you for letting me interrupt you. Now you can ask your question.
Absolutely. Hey, Ross, I'm Andrew. I'm from Ohio. I met you earlier.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your art over the years. Big fan. The book is absolutely phenomenal. Now I have a signed copy, so I feel good about that. So looking at your portfolio over the years, I mean, you have shot Metallica through virtually all the eras. Just some amazing photos. I mean, on the website, if you look at the work from the Damaged Justice tour all the way up through right now, is there, and obviously we're talking about the Black Album tonight, but is there a specific era of Metallica that when you think about all the photos that you've done over the years, that you're like, wow, I really enjoyed shooting the band during that album or during that era?
I'll show you I know my favourite photo is the one of the three of them. Can you pull it up? It's on the I think. Hang on, I'll show you that. I think he's got it.
On the plane?
On the plane.
I do have it. Yeah.
See when I have it.
Hang on, I've got to slow down because it's coming up.
That.
Go back one. Let's go back one. There we go.
That is my favourite picture of them.
Okay.
And what I like is Kirk's holding a video. People don't have those things anymore. You know, all of them had those.
Yeah.
Right? And they're rather the worse for wear after playing in Moscow. And it was about 3 a.m. James is wearing Johnny Colt with the Black Crow's hat. Right?
Okay.
Lars is very lubricated. And I just like that picture because... Trust me, you won't see them like that anymore. You know, I mean, you know, and
yeah.
I just like, and Lars had smashed his finger on the snare drum, which is like he wrote "bleeding for the kids." I've got a picture, and I just like that picture because I don't know. I think it's got a warmth about it. It's
okay.
there. Someone said to me, "Can you describe Metallica?" Look at that. You know that.
My other question is, the Moscow show is just incredible. The crowd, the set list, the version of Harvester, which it was just amazing. And, watching the video and that whole experience, as a photographer at that event, can you talk a little bit?
No, it was awful. It was dreadful. They're filming it. So
Okay.
You couldn't really go everywhere. And as Kirk said earlier, there was this air of malice and menace from the army who were very young, who wanted... So, any of the kids any of you tried to enjoy yourself, you were hit with a stick, you were beaten and kept back. That, you see, if you look at the photo from the air on the video, there's sort of segments of the army to break up this huge crowd. And I really didn't enjoy it as a photographer. I didn't enjoy that day at all.
Okay.
And that's honestly true. I mean, the Werchter shot, I like because it was with the arms. That was taken at just as dusk, and it's a perfect picture of the crowd and the light before it got too dark.
Okay.
I like that. But the Russia show, I mean, everyone likes it the back, but you know, like Kirk said earlier, it was very heavy, you know, without trying to sound like a hippie. You know, there was a very heaviness in the air.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much.
So, we're coming to the end. There's 3 more very quick questions I want to ask you, and then we will end. I would like to ask you the wisest words anyone in this business has ever told you.
What?
The wisest words anyone in this business has ever told you or offered you. Right, we move on, shall we?
Let's move on. I mean, that's like such a... The wisest words anyone has never been intimidated.
Okay. The most useless words anyone in the business has ever offered you. And again, let's keep it brief.
Yeah, brief. America, why don't we meet for lunch? Let's have a meeting. You know? Yeah. That'll never happen and you'll never get paid. Yeah.
I guess, you know, look, the final question I'm going to ask, and I think we'd all agree this is a strange question to ask someone because it's been a fantastic career and continues to be, but is there anything about your career that you would change? If you could go back in time?
I used to think I wish I'd started 10 years earlier. And now looking at all the stuff from 10 years earlier, which is the Dead, the Jefferson Airplane, you know, and, you know, all those bands, I'm glad I do the bands I've done. I'm glad I do Metallica. I'm glad I have an Iron Maiden arc. I'm even glad I do Pearl Jam, you know, when I've done them. I'm glad I do the Foo Fighters. I'm glad... I don't think I'd change anything. I mean, there's people I wish I'd photographed and I didn't bother. I mean, Dave Grohl once said to me, why didn't you do Nirvana? Which I could have easily. And I said, because you got big so quickly, I knew I didn't want to deal with what it was to deal with. And he actually said, yeah, that's a good point, you know, because I'd have to deal with what it became. You know, it's like a band like Metallica didn't get big quickly. They worked for what they've got. Anything Metallica's got, they've worked for over a long period of time, you know. And I'm glad I do Metallica, and I'm glad I do, you know, bands that are now, shall we say, or, you know, from my period of time, because as I've got older, I can look back like this book and appreciate it more than whereas before I was like, wow, I wish I'd done Jimi Hendrix. You know, I don't care that I didn't do Jimi Hendrix. That was other photographers. I'm glad I've done what I've done.
Brilliant. And you know what? That was going to be the last question, but I realise this poor chap's been standing politely waiting. And so okay? One final question. The final question goes to you, sir.
One final question?
Pressure.
Okay.
Make it a good one.
My name's Brent. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And I love both of your work, but I've been following Metallica since '88, since I was 15. And I noticed that when you did the Paris Special Stadium tour with the DVD, and you were doing you were at the rehearsal, and you were asking everyone to leave, and you told them all to fuck off. And I would like to be told to fuck off by Ross Halfin. I know that sounds rather cheeky.
What I'd like you to know is this is not a plan.
Because I'm Canadian, and that's what we do in Canada.
I'll put it in a simpler way for you about doing photos. If I took Metallica on the streets of New York, I would have 1,000 people around me that would not fuck off, right?
Right.
If I took Metallica into East LA, no one would bother us, right? And that's why, you know, that's what it is. And it's not so much people want to stare at you, people who either will stare at you and won't go away, or they'll be rude, you know, and won't go away. And that's why I tell people to fuck off.
Right.
Okay?
It's meant, I can tell it's meant in the nicest way. It's just like everybody, fuck off, fuck off.
Go, yeah.
No. Anyway. So
thank you.
Thank you. And look, thank you very much indeed, not just for capturing this fine 300-plus date tour, but for capturing this band so brilliantly since the early 80s and continuing to do so. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a hand to Mr. Ross Halfin.
Down there? Come down here with me. Come on.
Okay. And please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much indeed for coming, and keep on enjoying this week. And
Thank
all
you.
right, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.